Welcome back to more F1 coverage on Proline TV. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and joining me, of course, as always, is our lead analyst for motorsports on Proline TV from rotowire.com, CJ Radune. How's it going, CJ?
Going pretty well. Looking forward to a weekend of racing here and an even bigger one next weekend.
Oh, yes. Next weekend will be quite big. So I guess we're going to have to even try to fit in a little Indy 500.
We'll have to talk about that a little bit. They just started practice. Luckily, they were able to get the rain out of the way after a couple-hour delay. They're on track right now and looking forward to qualifying coming up this weekend.
Matter of fact, I think I may need to book you on our Wednesday show with three of those races. If we can't squeeze you in during the show when we air it, I think we usually air it Wednesdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. Then maybe I'll do like an interview with you that we can edit into the show. But we definitely have to get you on that show because this is, I mean, next week it is considered the biggest week of the year, correct?
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Got arguably the biggest Formula One race at Monaco. Definitely the biggest IndyCar race, if not the biggest race in the world, the Indy 500. And then after that, you've got NASCAR's longest race. So from the time you wake up as an East Coast resident in the United States, you've got racing until basically you go to sleep.
And what makes Monaco such a big race?
It is the crown jewel. It is not a great race.
Okay.
Because the track is from the 1950s with very little changes. There's not a lot of things that you can do to spice up the action there. They're going to try this year, and we can talk a little bit about that next week when we preview the Monaco race. It's become very processional, but the fact that you race in front of royalty, glitz and glamour of going past the yachts in the harbor. It's been on the Formula One calendar since Formula One started. So it is the race to win. And then the winner actually gets to have dinner, I think, with the prince afterward. So a special prize there as well.
Okay. But yeah, so if you had to compare it to like a NASCAR track, what would it be like?
Well,
Darlington or
I was going to say, well, last week we had Kansas, right? And that should have been a great race, but Kyle Larson dominated all of it. If he would have dominated it from flag to flag, maybe Kansas. Honestly, it's a processional track.
Like Bristol, then. Well, we dealt with this.
Yeah, the current Bristol situation with the new car is probably a comparison right now.
Not good. All right. So even though the race this week at Imola is a race that, if you look at it, you have to go back to 1995, the last time a winner won outside the top three. So, it's a little bit ways. I mean, we understand that it's normally going to come from the first couple of positions. We get that, but it's still quite a long time, 1995, since we had someone win the race at Imola outside the top three. Do you know the driver, the last McLaren driver to win at Imola?
Well, it wasn't Hamilton because they weren't there. So it's maybe Mika Hakkinen?
No.
All right, then it would have been around that time. So it would have had to have been his teammate, David Coulthard.
Yes.
All
1998. The last time McLaren won at Imola.
It's interesting to know, since you picked up on the starting position. Note this race has been on the Formula One calendar since 1980. It took a brief break in the early 2000s or mid early 2000s. But since it's been on the calendar for 31 races, this will be the 32nd time Formula One races there. No one has ever started outside of the top 5 and won.
Yeah. And those, and if you look at it, it was actually the first two winners who started 5th. And ever since then, nobody.
And by the way, it was the same person.
Yeah.
that did that, Nelson Piquet.
Yeah.
1980, 1981.
Matter of fact, if you, looking at there, it's like the first 8 winners were not on the pole.
Yeah,
And
that's true. All the way up until Nigel Mansell in 1987. He was the last one. He won it from the front row, but second position. And then Senna took over with back-to-back wins from pole, setting, I guess, the new trend. You've got to start in the top three.
you know, it was a good movie that I want to watch again because it's been a while, and I actually going to buy it. It's come down to like $7 or $8 on Amazon, so I'm like, yeah, I think I'm almost there. I don't know whether or not I want to. I usually only spend $5 unless it's something that's really good. But it's Rush.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, considering most motorsports movies are not that great.
Mm-hmm.
That was much better than I thought it was going to be. Especially when I watched it, I remember thinking, "Well, why is this as good as I'm thinking it is?" And nobody ever talks about it. You know,
yeah. I don't know.
Everybody talks up all these other big motorsports deals. You know, Sylvester Stallone or whatever that contraption was, and things. But this is actually a good movie.
Yeah, Rush was very well done. The only difference, I think, between that and the things like the Sylvester Stallone one and Days of Thunder, etc., and we'll see how this new Brad Pitt one goes. I don't have high hopes, but Rush was a true story. So it was based on James Hunt versus Niki Lauda. Another thing for those that are interested into Formula One and Formula One history, as I'm looking through the early winners here at Imola, the third time Formula One raced here was Didier Pironi, and he started from the fourth position back in 1982. If you have one of the movie channels on cable right now, I don't know if it's Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, or Stars, but there is a documentary that is out called Villeneuve and Pironi. And it's similar to Rush in that it talks about the relationship and the rivalry between Didier Pironi and Jacques Villeneuve's father, Gilles Villeneuve, who is the namesake of the Canadian Grand Prix circuit that's coming up here in the next few weeks, but extremely well done. They interview their families, talk about their rivalry on track. They both drove for Ferrari, talk about betrayal and how they had a falling out, and then ultimately their accidents and how that affected both them physically, mortally in Gilles' case, and then also their families as well. So highly recommend watching that one if you liked Rush. This one is a documentary, but done in the similar style and very well done.
And that's on where?
It's I'll find it. It's Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, something like that right now.
Okay.
If you look for it on demand, you'll probably be able to find it. I'm sure it's on Amazon and YouTube and everything else as well.
And again, it's called
Pironi and Villeneuve. Actually, let me look it up here, see if I can find it while we're on here.
So it's the last names of the two drivers.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly right. Villeneuve Pironi. It is on Cinemax right now. You can get it on Hulu. It's on YouTube, and then also currently on Amazon Prime.
So,
Villeneuve.
it is on Amazon Prime.
Yep.
Let me see here. I want to bore our audience, so I'll do this. Okay. So what am I typing in?
Villeneuve, Villeneuvve.
There it is.
There you go. That's it.
This one.
You got it. Recommend it.
Okay, there you go. All set. What the hell is all this crap? See, look at all these terrible
all the other terrible racing movies we do not recommend.
No. Yeah. I have it on so
there's Rush. Fantastic movie.
Yep, still $7.99. So I'm hoping it'll come down. Let's see, the price before discount is the median price. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm hoping. That's right. This was Ron Howard who directed this.
It was, yeah.
And of course, Chris Hemsworth. Nobody knew who he was back then.
Right. He was just breaking out at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. Okay. Let me pop up the odds, or as we get ready to pop up the odds for the race. And before we do that, Where did we have? Actually, we'll do that when we're done. I'm going to go over. There was an interesting article a couple of weeks ago. I think it might have been. Yeah. Yes. It was actually during the bye week, which was last week. And Prime Tire did a good article on where some of the teams, the 6 teams stand and so forth, and how they grade them, I guess. So we'll get into that. But first, let's go ahead and we're predict. Oh, and I believe we have 6 winners so far. So CJ, you've got 6 winning picks.
I don't know if that's hard. It's
Well,
easier than last year, but
still,
we've got a trend going on here.
It's because it ain't that easy when it could be the other driver. It could be Norris.
That is true.
Even though at some point, I think there's just too much parity between the 3 that it's, Norris is going to start winning some, and Max will start winning some, and then we'll get some other wins, Russell and maybe even Hamilton. So, just take it while it lasts. Absolutely. And let's see if we can keep that up. So Piastri was a plus 150 last week. He was a plus 110 the week before that. So again, it's not like we're getting the drivers like old Max style minus 200 or 400 or 600 or something. I mean, these are actually plus wagers that you can make some money on. Whatever you put down, basically you're making. So that's not bad. So let's see if we can keep it up. What do you think the number is going to be this week for Piastri?
It'll be below 2.
You think it'll be minus, or you think it'll be plus?
I think it'll be plus, and the reason why is because he's still got Lando Norris as his teammate, and exactly as you said, it's almost still like flipping a coin. Piastri has had the advantage. He's won the last 3 races, 4 out of the last 5, if I'm not mistaken. So he's getting the advantage in the championship. He is leading Norris at this point, but Norris has been making mistakes. And I think if Norris can cut those mistakes out, he can certainly be up there with Piastri. And I think it's still too early at this point in odds-wise in the season to be able to really probably differentiate the 2. So I don't think I put Piastri at a negative number yet. However, I would put him below 2 again.
So what are you going to do? 150?
Sure. Split the difference. I don't know.
Okay.
Here's 110 the week before.
You could do 110. Yeah, that was last week. They're shrinking.
I would. Yeah, 1 or 110.
Okay.
Low end of 1 is Piastri. You get a small bonus.
Hey, 150 is not bad.
It's not bad for Formula One, especially considering he's won the last 3 races.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think Norris is going to be?
Maybe a 175 for Norris. Very, very, very close to Piastri.
Okay.
The same. Interesting.
Okay.
Well,
so even though Piastri's been the better driver, because think of this: if Norris had won the last 3,
Norris would be negative if he had
won.
It's just because Piastri is fairly new on the scene. Norris made his statement last year by taking Max all the way to the line for the championship. Not all the way to the line, but took him as far as he could go to the championship. And Piastri was kind of just not there. He was in the points consistently, but he wasn't winning races. Now it seems like this year Piastri's really got it made. Norris is the one under pressure. Piastri's got the championship lead, as we talked about with the evolution of cars. McLaren's certainly going to be evolving theirs and bringing upgrades. Generally speaking, as those upgrades arrive, the preferential treatment for the 2 drivers is going to go to the one that's leading the championship. And right now that's Oscar Piastri. So I think if he can keep this momentum going, he's in a really good position. Norris, like you said, at some point is just too good. Once he cuts out the mistakes, he's going to challenge Piastri. He's going to win some races though. So what these odds more insightfully tell me is that if these drivers are equal, you're going to want to take a look at the McLaren as a team, as a constructor to win the race. Those odds are probably going to be negative. But at that point, if you can't choose between the 2, which the odds are suggesting you can't, then you're probably better off going with a negative number for McLaren, because that way you've got both drivers in the bag and likely that one of them is going to win
Yeah, the problem is that number could be really, really, really negative.
I would guess it's negative 275 or so.
And it could be worse. So, where do you think max is? 5?
I don't think I'd put max that far because at Imola, this track in particular is a lot like Suzuka. It's an old school track. It's a European track, natural terrain. It's got blind corners, elevation changes, and tight corners too. It's not a wide track. It's not a modern track where you've got lots of room for passing. In fact, this track only has one DRS zone as well. So there's probably only one real chance of making a pass on this entire lap at this track. So if Max can continue his streak and actually beat out the two McLarens to get on pole, I think we could see another Suzuka where Max Verstappen can dominate from the front and keep everyone behind him and go on to the win. So I don't think he'll be 500, but I would put him maybe 350, maybe 400-ish for Max, and he'll definitely be third on the list here.
And he's won 3 straight.
Correct.
So
last 2 from the pole. The one before that was from the 3rd position, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
4. There you go.
4-1. All right. So you'd say then that this is actually when you're thinking of when are good weeks to take Max. Last week would not have been. A couple of weeks ago would have been. This week would be.
I think this week is a good week to take Max because he has shown and continues to show that Red Bull has the pace over one lap. He's gotten pole position the past handful of times. The difference of that versus the other races versus Suzuka, where he actually won from pole position, is the style of track. Saudi Arabia, he was on pole, Miami on pole, but those tracks offer more passing opportunities. Suzuka doesn't offer many, if any, passing opportunities. Imola doesn't offer any passing opportunities either. So therefore, if Verstappen can pull out that one lap speed again, get on top of the McLarens, get that pole position, then make his way into the first turn without getting a penalty, then I think we could see another Max Verstappen victory. So I think this is a good week actually to choose Verstappen at plus 400. Certainly your safest bet is going to be going with the McLaren as the constructor. If I had to choose between Piastri and Norris just because of his momentum, I would take Piastri. But second choice, if you want to call him a long shot at plus 4, would be a Max Verstappen.
Okay. And yeah, and by the way, it was actually Miami was actually the last race was actually a good week to take Max. It was Saudi Arabia that wasn't, I believe. And then of course you had
Verstappen was he was dominating the race in 2024 in Miami, and he had that hiccup over the chicane that damaged the floor of his car. So I think my prevailing thought was that he was going to be strong again this year. Piastri and the McLaren, I think he was strong. He got pole position, was very fast, obviously, at Miami. But the McLaren just stretched its legs over an entire race distance. They are much nicer on the tires. Miami is hot. And that's another good reason, actually, to choose Verstappen this week, is that Imola is not Miami. It's not South Florida. So the temperature is going to be cooler. We know that the Red Bull is tougher on the tires. So cooler temperatures for a car that is tough on tires is going to play into Max Verstappen's hands. We've heard Zach Brown from McLaren say the hotter the better. Likely this week at Imola, not going to be even close to the temperatures that we saw at Miami. So again, if Verstappen is able to get that pole position, I think he's got a really good chance of staying out front the entire race. The other thing to consider is that the development war continues, and Red Bull obviously is going to continue their evolution. They've been chipping away at McLaren's advantage. They're expected to bring more upgrades this week for Verstappen to use, so that should push them a little bit closer as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the last time we did this a couple weeks ago, we decided it made more sense, since there wasn't going to be a winning car, that we put Max in there as the second pick at 5-1. So that made sense. Like you said, he won the pole. And again, I think it was, let me take a look at the odds, because when you took the winning car with McLaren at Saudi Arabia, it was actually minus 450.
Wow.
So let's keep in mind, like if we just do it let's just say we do it with just minimal $100 wagers, then let's see. Okay, so then you have nothing at Australia. Then you have the winning pick at Piastri is 3. So that puts you up 2. Nothing at Japan is 1. But then you've got the Russell top 4 pick. So it's minus 150, meaning you have to put up 150 to make 1. So you're only making 1 there. So now you're at 2. You win the winning car minus 250 McLaren. So again, you only make 1. So you're at 3. Keeping in mind, though, like the next race, you're up 3, but you had the minus 450 McLaren. You lose that one and you lose all of your profit. So now you're down to minus 150, but you got the win. So now it's plus 400, and so forth and so on. So I'll have a more exact on these because we also had to throw in the top 4 as well. We had one top 4 win this year, I believe, and that was Russell. He was minus 150 at Bahrain. So
he was back on the podium again at Miami. And those of you looking at Mercedes, Russell has been very consistent. Mercedes, Toto Wolff, the Mercedes boss, said that Mercedes knows exactly what they need to do with their car now. It's a much better car than they had last year, and they are bringing all of their upgrades over the next couple of races. So assuming that that is true, we should see George Russell and Kimi Antonelli further down there at the plus 3,500 or 30 plus 35. We should see them moving up the order as well. So George Russell for a top 4 at negative 225 is probably not a bad choice, to be honest with you. And Kimi Antonelli has been out there leading laps. He's going to make a breakthrough relatively shortly as well. So I don't think he is a plus. I don't think he's a top 4 car this week necessarily at 275. Probably Russell's a better spot there, but look for Mercedes to start closing the gap over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so would you have a top 4 car then out of these drivers?
Out of this page, certainly George Russell would be my pick. He's been a consistent podium finisher. Mercedes just executes. They don't make mistakes. They call the right strategy. This is a tough track to pass on, so a lot of it's going to come down to qualifying, but if there's anybody that can make up ground through pit strategy, it's Mercedes. So George Russell being back on the podium, I could see that for sure, and negative 225 for a top 4 position is not a bad wager to take.
Do you think it is a better wager to do George Russell at minus 225 for top 4, or add in Max again as the second driver getting 4-1?
This week, I would take Max at 4 just because of the lack of opportunities to pass. And Max Verstappen, I would bet the pole is going to be very close. And if he can pull it out and make it to turn 1 first, I think he stands a really good chance of going to wire again.
Okay. And then when we go to the final one, winning car. Okay. Because right now the edge is Max. So let's say then, what's a better pick? Russell at minus 225, top 4, or McLaren minus 330 to win?
Oh, wow. That is tough. Probably splitting hairs, but probably McLaren would be the better one. You're getting worse odds slightly, but you get 2 drivers.
Yeah.
With Russell, you've got 4 positions, but you've also got a lot of competition that's up there. And not to say that Russell can't do it. He absolutely can. And I probably would think that if he finishes up there, he's likely going to be on the podium as well. But McLaren, you get 2 drivers that could potentially even lock out the front row and just have a dominating day amongst themselves. So I would go with McLaren negative 330 over the George Russell in the top 4.
Okay, there you go. So Piastri. So again, and your overall pick is Piastri?
Correct.
And then we've got Max at 4-1. And then we're going to go with McLaren minus 330 winning car. And then the odd wager out is going to be George Russell at minus 225. But obviously, if anybody wants to do a top 4, that is the one based on this strategy, of course, that you're going to go with. Because again, if you wind up going with any of the other drivers, they're much higher. And at that point, you're just better off doing winning car.
Absolutely.
So,
if you can, I mean, the McLaren at negative 330 compared to what you said a couple of weeks ago at a negative 450, I think that was Saudi Arabia. That seems like a pretty good deal at this point. Extra point for you.
Yeah, because if you think about it, why I'm trying to think here. So Piastri and Norris are minus, or even Max. These are like crazy odds for top 4. And I know you're getting 4 spots, and we get that. And it's very unusual when any of the 4 are not in the 4. But I mean, it's sort of like if it's one of those things where it just would make more sense to do McLaren with a winning car at minus 330. That just makes, again, you got to win, but you don't have to, you're not worrying about putting up, 1,000 to make 100.
Yeah. And motor racing is really tough to make money on from a wagering perspective. There are so many variables that go into an entire race weekend, and even just the race itself. So much depends on qualifying. So much depends, you have to have luck. There are 20 some other competitors that are out there as well. Every weekend seems to be different. Anything can happen. So really challenging there for those crazy odds on top 4. I would absolutely go for winning car at that point.
Okay. Let's now talk about this article here I was mentioning on Prime Tire. We'll have a link in the description. You can check it out, but this is for free. You can get these newsletters for free. And so basically they're assessing the teams and putting together, where they stand at this point in the season. And you've got full meltdown time for Alpine. So did they just fire someone?
Yeah, I was going to say they're making personnel changes already, talking about potentially taking out Jack Doohan, who's a rookie. He would be another new driver after Liam Lawson to lose his seat that he started at the beginning of the season, just a quarter of the way through the season at this point. Alpine, or Alpine, however you want to pronounce it, really behind the ball, having a lot of struggles, and most of it seems to be internal at this point.
So is this supposed to be Alpine?
I guess it would depend on
what. This is Alpine. Alpine. Yeah, I guess that's what they're trying to do, right?
Alpine.
Spell Alpine. Pronounce it. Okay. So you're saying some people pronounce it Alpine?
Yeah, generally the French will say Alpine.
Alpine.
It is a French company, French car manufacturer.
Okay.
Like the Alpine.
Okay, Aston Martin. Not much better, it seems, just a little bit. So what do you think about how things are going for Aston Martin?
It's really interesting, Aston Martin, because they've made massive investments in their team. They've got former Formula One champion Fernando Alonso there. They brought Adrian Newey over from Red Bull. However, Adrian Newey hasn't hand-to-hand in designing this car. Adrian Newey plays more for 2026 when the rules changes come into effect and we get a whole new set of rules, whole new car starting next season. So that's when I think we'll see Aston Martin kind of change more with the Newey effect. Honestly, they were surprising me this year because they started off pretty well in 2024, but as other teams continued to evolve their cars and bring upgrades, they just caught up and passed Aston Martin. So by the end of the year, Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll just weren't as competitive as they were at the beginning of the year. I expected them to make up some of that ground. Since this is the last year with these rules, they could have progressed their car into this season, 2025, but they're definitely starting on the back foot. And I think compounding that, it may not be as bad as it seems because a lot of the compound factors have been Fernando Alonso, who was their top scorer last year, has just had some bad luck. He's had some crashes in the wet. He's had some crashes in practice and qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. Just things have not been going his way. I think if we can get some luck on Fernando Alonso's side, perhaps this weekend here at Imola, a track that he's won at in the past, I think we can see a step forward in Aston Martin. Do I think that they're going to move back to where they were last year? No, they're too far behind, but they are definitely on the back foot, definitely the underachievers in my book of the season so far.
Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton, things have not worked out so far.
He won a sprint race. Yeah, Ferrari seems to be floundering. It'll be interesting with Ferrari because, like Aston Martin, their eye has got to be set on 2026 and being able to get off on the right foot when the new rules package comes out. So, are they going to stop putting their efforts into 2025 early in an effort to devote some of that focus to the next year's car, 2026? And stop the evolution? They're already behind. So the gamble is going to be whether or not they think they can make up the ground that they are behind. And right now they are clearly behind. I would put them probably third on the list. Actually, I'm sorry, fourth on the list in terms of the pecking order. You've got McLaren that by far still has the best car that's out there. Red Bull in Max Verstappen's hands, extremely competitive as well. And then you've got Mercedes with George Russell just going out there executing, and they're going to continue developing the 2025 car. So I think Ferrari, if they don't see a turnaround in the next couple of weeks, my question is going to be, when do they stop focusing on 25 and start focusing on 26?
And of course, as you mentioned with Red Bull and Verstappen, there's still chance, right? There's still time.
Absolutely.
So it's not over. Do you think if they're able to find a way to close the gap, do you think it's going to be something that's going to happen quick?
Yes, I think it will be. We've seen the upgrades make an instantaneous difference. So a couple of weeks ago, we were expecting the upgrades to first come at Imola. It's the first European race. That's traditionally when teams are able to bring the upgrades because it's close to their shops. They're able to truck the new parts out and bring different parts if they need to. They're close enough, long story short, they're close enough to go back and forth to the shops to be able to take the gamble of bringing new parts. Red Bull, however, started bringing them earlier. And when Red Bull started bringing them earlier, we saw the gap cut to McLaren. And, Max Verstappen had that win at Suzuka and was able to continue being competitive, getting poles. They're going to continue bringing their upgrades over the next couple of weeks. They have some scheduled for Imola. So I do think that if Red Bull can hit the nail on the head with a set of upgrades, I think it'll be a very quick change in pace that we'll see Max Verstappen on par with the McLarens.
Okay. Obviously a big if, but
it is a big if.
It's what we're hoping for, just like last year. All right. And what about these two here? Hadjar and Lawson.
Hadjar has been very impressive, actually. So he is a rookie. He was the one that crashed went out on the parade lap before the Australian Grand Prix and had the meltdown afterward. Probably the worst debut in Formula One you can possibly imagine having. But he's come back and he's actually been very fast and he's scored points in a couple of races. So Isaac Hadjar, very impressive at what he's been able to overcome in this first quarter of the season. I would expect him to continue to be able to finish in points paying positions. I actually have him chosen in my fantasy lineup this week. We'll have a link to the preview for that article in the link of this show when this is posted, so you can see Isaac Hadjar in there. He's one I'm definitely got my eyes on for the future.
Okay. And let's see. And you mentioned a little bit already about George Russell.
Absolutely.
What's the best case scenario for them to win a race, or is it possible they can win two races?
I think they can win multiple races, especially we'll see this weekend when they start bringing their upgrades, how much of the gap they're able to close, if they're able to start having George be on the podium every single week, not most weeks. And I do think that Kimi Antonelli has shown some speed. He's been able to get out there and lead some laps. I think if he can put a full race distance together without traffic and issues, I think that Kimi Antonelli is going to be on the podium alongside George Russell in the near future, or at least by the time the season's over as well.
So there will be a time, I'm not sure when, but there will be a time when we're doing these previews that you're going to pick George Russell to win a race.
By the end of the season, you can quote me now. I expect that would happen, and I would be surprised if I don't at some point also say Kimi Antonelli might be in the mix as well.
Okay. And again, that doesn't have to be your only pick, but because you're getting big odds, it could be just like a sort of like one of those max co-picks that might be pretty nice, especially you do just a few of those, and you only have to hit once, and you're in good shape. Haas,
okay, kind of status quo. Not as good as they were a couple of seasons ago, but not having the problems I think that we saw relatively recently in their history as well. So I don't think they're going to be in contention for podiums or wins. I think what they're looking for is consistent points finishes to be able to be that top winner without type of constructor. If they can finish in the top 5, 6, that would be a huge step for them.
And finally, Williams.
Williams is actually doing pretty well. Williams probably the most improved year over year. Alex Albon's been coming out and putting some great races together. And once Carlos Sainz figured out how to drive the Williams versus the Ferrari like he's been used to in past seasons, he's actually gotten over some of the early season troubles that he's had as well. So I think that's who Haas is going to be fighting with, I think, for best of the rest. I think Williams is best of the rest right now, most likely, at least consistently. In the hands of Albon, and Sainz is now getting there as well. So I think that midfield fight between the Racing Bulls, Isaac Hadjar, Williams, and then you can throw Haas in there as well. I think that's your mid-pack battle.
So it actually would be pretty fun to keep an eye on the driver versus driver matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe those would be some. You think that would be so you're saying like Williams and Haas might be going up against each other in those situations?
Yeah, if you look at the standings, the most consistent points finisher, not of Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren or Ferrari, has been Alex Albon in the Williams. The next one probably, it's tough to say. Maybe Ali Behrman in the Haas. He hasn't been as high up in the points, but he's got 3 points finishes. Carlos Sainz has 3 points finishes in the other Williams. And then you got Racing Bulls there with Yuki Tsunoda. Well, actually, I take that back. Yuki Tsunoda switched to Red Bull proper. He's now got 3 points paying finishes. But if you look at Isaac Hadjar in Racing Bulls, he's now got 2. So that will be an interesting thing that we can start looking at in the coming weeks. Driver versus driver, the mid-pack battles. I think right now, whoever Alex Albon is up against, that's going to be the one that you want, plus 180. And Sainz,
so,
there you go.
Yeah, these are without the big teams.
Yep.
So, and the best bargains then here would be Lawson and Hadjar. Not this week, but...
Bargain, I would say Hadjar. Most confident, Alex Albon, and Carlos Sainz, probably Albon. But yeah, best bargain on the board right there. Again, not specifically for this week, but season overall, probably Isaac Hadjar. Yeah, I think that would be a good one.
Okay, so like you said, CJ, if you're watching this video, then you can check out the link in the description. That is the DFS report at rotowire.com for this race. And every F1 race and NASCAR race, but no All-Star race for NASCAR?
No All-Star race.
No All-Star race DFS? No. Okay. Good for you.
Oh, well, for NASCAR, yes, we will have a DFS report for NASCAR coming out. We can share that as well.
And are you...
I thought you were asking if Formula One had an All-Star race. They do
no.
Not.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, is that like an American thing? All-Star races?
Seems like it. Yeah. The only All-Star events.
Wow. They've never had like an All-Star anything like for F1.
It wouldn't be Formula One. No, they've had, they had IROC, International Race of Champions. But again, that all happened in America. They brought Formula One drivers over, and some Formula One drivers competed in there. But again, all American.
Well, I mean, it would be silly to do that in F1 because every week's an All-Star race.
This is true.
It's like having, the top 3 or 4 drivers in NASCAR race every week. That's the way it is. All right. Anyway, so schedule next week, right?
Yeah, next week we've got
That's
Monaco.
the triple header.
Yeah, triple header, Monaco. That's Memorial Day weekend, and then no break off. We go to Spain, stay in Europe the week after that, first weekend in June.
Okay,
so
there's no break until after Spain.
Correct, and I think after that we go to Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So that'll be a week off before Canada, and then another week off between Montreal and Austria. But 3 straight weeks, big week next week. We'll talk about all 3 series here on the channel. So we'll give, I'm not sure how we'll put it together, probably do 3 different reports because we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the Indy 500, but we will do an Indy 500 report. We'll give picks. We'll go over everything that we need to do to put together something for you. So you're up to speed on all 3 series in the biggest week of the year. So CJ, appreciate your time as always. By the way, do you ever do an Indy 500 report for RotoWire?
Yeah, I will have one this year. So when we post the Indy 500 report, we can provide that link at rotowire.com as well. Yeah,
very good. Excellent. CJ, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see everybody next week with the big week. We're covering them all right here on Proline TV.